All right, let's get started. First of all, thank you for joining this webinar. This webinar, we're going to concentrate on the topic called Beyond Swim Lanes, Building Smart Lanes. First of all, quick set of the agenda for this particular webinar. We'll have a quick introduction about Kanban and the various principles that we implement in our product. Basic Kanban board patterns is something that we're going to show during the demo. We're going to talk about smart lanes. How do you configure smart lanes in SwiftKanban? We're going to show some boards that have been created, and also we will do a live demo of creating a particular Kanban board with a particular value stream in mind, and we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session. Basic housekeeping, this webinar is being recorded and all the slides will be shared with the participants. You can use the hashtag SwiftKanban for tweeting or later interactions. It will be much easier using that hashtag. You can post your Q&A questions and we'll answer them all at the end. You can also ask for the mic during the Q&A session. We would pass around the mic and we can have an interactive session rather than just a keyboard session. Okay, Kanban key principles. So these are the key principles what Kanban is all about. One is map your value stream, which is very important. Again, so what Kanban says is that whatever you're doing, whether you're using Agile, whether you're using Waterfall, whether you're doing a business process management, whether you're doing document management, whatever it is, whatever your process is, make the value stream, map your value stream. So what are the steps your piece of work goes through? Map it up well so that you are now able to take your work and put it on the value stream and see where the work is. So you get a visual context to what your steps are for getting your work done and where all your work currently is in those steps, right? The third one is limit work in progress. So this is an important step and a principle of Kanban, primarily because of the fact that number one, when you limit work in progress, you limit the context switching that one needs to do, trying to do 3 or 4 pieces of work together, number one. And number two, limiting work in progress in Kanban also gives you an indicator when your process is not smooth. So when your process is not smooth, in certain stages of your work, the work builds up, you violate work in progress, which actually gives you an indication much earlier in the cycle that there is something wrong that needs to be fixed, which you can concentrate on rather than get surprised at delivery time that you didn't meet the deadlines, right? Establish a cadence. So this tells you the fact that anything you do, for example, you're doing planning, you want to establish, say, for example, a weekly cycle, a 2-weekly cycle, whatever is the cadence you establish that. For example, you're doing process improvement or Kaizen, you say, okay, it's going to be done every 15 days, right? So for anything you do, establish a particular cadence, and in Kanban, all these cadences can actually be on their own. For example, any cadence doesn't have to be linked with other cadence. So that is the beauty of Kanban. You can have different cadences for different types of work or different types of events that you have. Remove bottlenecks and improve the flow. As you implement the value stream, you visualize your work and implement your work in progress. When you track the work, you are going to see bottlenecks coming up, and the focus in Kanban is how do you improve the flow and make it smooth. You don't have those bottlenecks, you don't have those WIP violations. So a very simple principle. Once you do that, your bottlenecks are removed, your flow is improved, and you can increase your throughput. So your throughput again is a factor of your WIP and your cycle time. So for the same amount of WIP, if you reduce your cycle time, your throughput goes up. The classic Little's law. So what you do by reducing bottlenecks and improving flow is you are going to reduce cycle time, and for the same amount of work in progress on the board, you are going to get a much better throughput. So that in essence is the key principles of Kanban. So let's go and see how you can take your value stream and map it for various things that you want to do on a Kanban board. So this is again we have 4 or 5 different flows here we've just defined just to show you what a flow is. So this is a basic Kanban flow where you are taking you're taking a work and say it's a development work or a defect fixing work. So there is a ready queue. You have a WIP limit of 5 on this. Then it goes into the analyze. It goes to develop, it goes into validate, and it goes into deploy. So this is your value stream. And here on this board, we have indicated different types of colors for different types of cards, which means that there are different types of work. For example, UST is a user story, issue is this white, this gray card, and defect is actually a pink card, right? So you are saying, hey, this is the steps in which my work goes through, and these are the type of work that I'm going to put through this process. Again, here the assumption is all your work, whether it's an issue, it's a user story, or a defect, goes through the same value stream, which is ready, analyze, develop, validate, and deploy. Now, that may not be true, so this is a very simple depiction. And for each type of work, you may have a different value stream. We will see how you can actually implement it on the SwiftKanban product. So next is the concept of enabling pull. So Kanban is one of those. This thing says the work needs to be pulled, right? Which is one of those important tenets of Kanban. So to implement a pull system, normally what is done? For example, let's assume this value stream here. You have ready, you have analyzed, you have developed and validate, right? Now let's assume that you are doing analysis, right? And you have a distributed team, or a team in 2 different offices in your organization. Now, when I have analyzed, let's assume that analysis is done by people in the East Coast, and develop, for example, is done by people in the West Coast. Let's assume that. So when you're analyzing, in this type of an implemented, what happens is that I sitting the West Coast probably needs to give a call to someone to find out, hey, have you finished the analysis of this particular work, right? So that is one way. So this, now what you can take this and take it to the next step here. If you look at the develop, you have what you call in progress and done. And normally in progress and done are 2 sub queues normally assigned to any work in progress in any step, which will enable pull system. Now let me explain what I mean. For example, this work comes into in progress. That means I'm still doing work. It is not ready for the next person to actually pull it as part of his work. So the next value stream or the next step in this value stream is validate. So this person would not be able to pull any of the work that is in progress queue. Once I finish the in progress queue, I push it to done queue. That immediately indicates to the validate person who's doing the validation that there is a piece of work that I can now pull into my stream and do my work, right? So normally this is how you would implement a pull system where you have in progress and done, and then the done is normally available for the next in line to actually pull it as work as far as his WIP limit is not violated and he's got bandwidth. Okay, so a small information out there which will be very useful when we design our board. So we've been a number of times we've been asked questions about, hey, how do you schedule or how do you plan in using Kanban, right? So we have seen a number of ways in which people use the Kanban system to actually do scheduling. And here's a very, very simple way, just to give you an idea as to how you can implement a very simple scheduling system. So this is a ready queue. And for example, let's assume that you have a 2-week scheduling cadence. That is, every 2 weeks, you look at all your backlog you have and say, hey, what am I going to do this week? What am I going to do next week, right? So this particular Kanban board here is built for a 2-week type of a cadence. What you do, you have a ready queue. You have all your cards out here. You would plan and say, okay, for this week, these are the cards that I'm actually going to work on, and this is my plan for the next week. So you can actually have cards out here and plan it in the next week. Now, we have also seen that when you implement something like this, the scheduling can just be one of the lanes in your Kanban board, or your work to be done can be on a completely different Kanban board. So this Kanban board just indicates, based on my schedule, what is the work that is in progress in this week, what has been done this week, and what is the work that I've scheduled for next week, right? The actual work in progress can actually be done on additional lanes out here, or you can actually have a separate Kanban board where work is done, and you can pretty much update this Kanban board based on when work is done. So very simple scheduling type of a Kanban board that you can implement for scheduling work depending on what the process that you follow for doing this. We have seen again now to do work. So in the previous slide, what we did was we scheduled work. Now, once you schedule work, for example, you can take some of those cards that are there, and you could create another value stream like this. Here, what we are saying is that your input queue for this week. So these are the items of work that we decided that we will do this week. So that becomes your input queue. So all the cards from there would actually come into the input queue. And now what we are trying to do is we have three types of work, as you see here. We have bugs, we have stories, and we have issues, right? So what we here again, for each of these type of work, we have defined a value stream. Again, the value stream can be different. For example, bugs can be analyze, fix, validate, deploy, and for stories, as you see, it estimate, elaborate, develop, validate, deploy. Again, each of them doesn't have to be same number of steps. You can have 8 steps here, you can have 3 steps here, you can have 2 steps here. So just to give you an indication as to how you could configure your board in different ways to suit the way you would perform work for that type of activity, right? So this is one of the boards out here. Just wanted to show you. In SwiftKanban, we have a concept called smart lanes. Smart lanes are something that you can enable, which allows you to now automatically take a value stream. For example, you say, my value stream for doing user stories is ready, for defect is ready, fix, validate, ready, deploy, right? Now you have different types of work in your system. You have defects, issues, and user stories. So in SwiftKanban, we have a smart lane setting, which allows you to now create horizontal lanes like what we created. These are different lanes that you create for different types of work. So defect, issue, user story. So you say, hey, create a values, create horizontal lanes depending on type of work. It will automatically go ahead and create these 3 value streams, or these 3 smart lanes, if you will. Smart lanes also give you the configurability to say, okay, I want to create these horizontal lanes by team member, by size of work. For example, you can say I have extra large, medium, small, or some other specification you have in terms of sizing. So I would want to actually have different lanes for doing different types of size of work. For example, for my extra large cards, I want 1 lane. For my medium cards, I want 1 lane. For the small cards, I have another lane. You can do that. So that is another smart lane setting. You can do it by priority. For example, you say high, critical, high, medium, low. You can automatically ask the system to create your horizontal lanes. You can do it by class of service, like expedite, standard class, and things like that. So you can ask the system to create smart lanes or horizontal lanes based on that type of distinction as well. We also have smart lanes by specific labels that you would want. For example, in your organization, you say, I have to have a horizontal lane by business unit 1, another horizontal lane by business unit 2. The value streams need to be completely different for each of these. So you could implement again that using the smart lanes feature in SwiftKanban. So this is a depiction of a particular smart lane by class of service. As you see here, expedite, fixed delivery, standard class have been defined as different lanes out here, and the system automatically defined based on what your classes of services are, right? And that's why we call it a smart lane. Here again, we have a depiction by team member. It takes you up, it takes all your team members here, and then allows you to look at create horizontal lanes by the team member as well. Okay, so that is a quick idea as to how you can use the smart lanes, how you can use the value streams, and how you can have different value streams and things like that. Now we are going to go into a quick demo to show you how easy it is to build these smart lanes using SwiftKanban. One second, I'm going to actually share my screen here. So I'm going to log in as a user here. And yeah, 5-minute overview for people who have not seen the product before. But the entire this whole webinar is going to concentrate on how to create these value streams and things like that. But again, I want to give you a quick overview of how you can use the product easily. So we have when you create an account for yourself or a trial account for yourself, you normally get an admin user license, and there are a couple of things you can do. You can go into people, invite all the people that you would want again to be invited into multiple Kanban boards here, and again you can go ahead and give their primary roles. So we have roles like admin, member, reader, manager, and things like that, and the role privileges associated with each of these roles are documented in our help setting here. Admin allows you to create people. Managers are able to create projects or Kanban boards. Members are able to participate in multiple Kanban boards, and readers will be able to only see but not do anything on the Kanban board, right? So that is the first one. And second one here is the settings. Here is where you actually have a set of cards that we provide out of the box. You're able to go ahead and create card by the card types that you would want. For example, you have multiple types of work, and each type of work you want to depict by a particular card type. You can actually go ahead and do that. Give it a name, give it a short code, pick up the color, and then create the card. The third thing you'll be able to do is when you create a card, it's got a default data structure. Now you may want to add to the data structure, delete the data structure, and change it completely. So this is you double click the card. This is the data structure associated with the existing card that came out of the along with your login or the cards that you created. You are able to now add fields to this here, drag and drop a particular field from here, and create, give it a name, and say, it is a drop-down box. You are able to create a drop-down box and associated with it. So this is how you would take a particular card and create associated attributes that works for you, right? So you added people, you've created your card types, which are work types, right? The next one here would be the quick links. So here is where you would get to access all the projects that or the Kanban boards that you are associated with, and here you get to jump either directly to the Kanban board or to its metrics or to its backlog, right? So it's Kanban board, metrics, and backlog, and you can jump to any board out here in these three things. So let me go into the SwiftKanban board out here. I'm going to close this out. So as you see here, this is pretty much the value stream that we have actually created. This comes by default. It's ready, develop, validate, and deploy, right? And as you see, the WIP limit in the develop queue actually is being tripped because the WIP limit is 5, and the number of cards here is 7. So this automatically indicates that you have a pile up of work out here, or the validator is not be able to pull work quickly enough, and it gets piled up here. So these are some indications here. Plus, on the card itself, you have indications like it is blocked. You have a red color block this thing, and you have a red color border to the particular card. You are able to collapse the card and see the board in more detail. You are able to do a full screen view on the board. So these are some of the usability things that you can actually use on the board. And before we go and modify a process, I'm going to show you the board filter here for your stand-up meetings and things like that. You can actually say, hey, what is Derek doing by critical and high? I can actually draw them and say apply this filter. You are able to look at the cards that he's working on. Let me go and reset and apply. We have also implemented in the current new release. We also implement a very useful feature requested by many of the customers. That is, look at the board by exceptions. So here you can say, you know what, I want to find only the blocked cards, or I want to find the cards that are overdue compared to what I actually have. So you are the overdue cards, right? Similarly, you have things like above estimates, cards that are unassigned to anyone, cards that are blocked. So this is another filter capability that we have brought in recently. Okay. Having said that, let's go ahead and create a new board here, and let's walk through the process of creating it. So I'm going to go ahead and create. I'm going to create a new board called demo board. Okay. So the moment you create a new Kanban board, it defaults to the standard simple flow that you would actually get once you create the project. Now, depending on your value stream, and Kanban advocates that it can be incremental, so you can actually get together and think about how you are currently doing work and take that as version 1 of your value stream and actually implement it. And over multiple iterations, you can keep changing this value stream till you get the appropriate value stream that really works for you. And in true Kanban sense, there is no ultimate destination. It's a continuous journey because you're continuously improving. And one of the ways you improve is keep tweaking your value stream and your WIP limit and things like that, so that you get much better throughput and reduce your cycle time in the system. Okay. So with that, let me start this. So you have this basic template that has come. You would go ahead and click the modify process here, and once you click the modify process, you would see these icons that would actually come up. Now these icons allow you to create additional lanes. So I could go ahead and click this. It will allow, first of all, it allows me to move this lane to the left, or move this lane to the right, add a lane to the left, add a lane to the right, delete this particular lane, and change the name of the lane or associated things, right? So that is one. Now, before we actually tinker around with it, let's go to the smart lane settings here, which is one of the first things you want to do. And here is where you get to enable the smart lanes. And like we talked about earlier during the presentation, we have two ways in which you can create smart lanes. One is define smart lanes based on the following card attributes, right? Priority, card type, class of service, team members, and size. Again, so if you have 10 team members, it will actually create 10 different lanes for each of the, one for each team member. If you have defined 4 classes of service, it would actually create 4 different lanes, horizontal lanes for 4 different classes of service. And when I showed you about the data structure associated with the card, that is where you could create your own custom type of class of service. So the class of service are expedite, standard, fixed delivery date, intangible, and things like that. So those are the type of class of service that we have, but you can go ahead and tweak it, and depending on the number of classes of service that you offer to your customer, we would create automatically the number of horizontal lanes here, right? So this is one way of doing it. The second way is saying that, hey, I'm not bothered about any of these. I want to create smart lanes by my own classification. Probably I want to create smart lanes by my business unit, or I have some other way in which I want to create smart lanes. So you'll be able to define smart lanes by both these, right? So let's enable smart lanes. And for this demo, let's start out by creating smart lanes by, say, for example, let's say priority, right? Or let's say class of service. So I'm going to create it by class of service. I'm going to do a save. So it asks you whether you want to create a smart lane by this attribute. I say yes, and as you see, it is created 4 different smart lanes. So it's create urgent, fixed delivery date, standard class, and intangible class. Okay, so it's created 4 class of service based lanes. Again, these are the 4 class of service I offer to my customers. If I had another class of service which I define, it will automatically create another lane for that class of service as well, right? Now what we do is once you define this particular class of service, you are able to now go ahead and pick this value stream here. Now let's take the urgent one. Okay, we say it's ready, it's developed, it's validate, it is approved, and we say okay, we want one more additional column here which is deploy. So I'm going to use this icon here and add another column to the right, and I'm going to call it, I can double click here and I'm going to call it deploy. Right, and I'm going to define what this particular step in terms of metrics I want to capture. Is this a completed lane? Is it an in progress lane, or it's a ready lane? So I would make it in progress because I would want to calculate the time it actually takes to deploy it. So I would make it in progress, or if you say it's a ready queue or a completed queue in your measurement, then you could actually go ahead and do that. So I'm going to make it in progress. I'm going to actually give it a WIP limit of 5, and I'm going to do a submit. Right now we have a new lane called deploy. Now let's go ahead here and let's look at it a little different here. Now let's assume that in the ready queue you want to track work by 2 different business units you have. So I'm going to go ahead, click this here. I'm going to horizontally split this into 2, right? And I'm going to actually say this is my finance business unit, and I'm going to go ahead and say this is my manufacturing unit. Right. Again, I'm able to define the separate WIP limits for each of these, and I'm able to submit it here. So if you look at this WIP limit, again they are independent. For example, when I say ready 5, I can have 5 cards in finance, or I can have a combination of 2 and 3 cards here, and I'm still fine with this limit, right? So that's what I've done here. Now let's assume that so we have divided this into 2 here. I am able to go ahead and say in certain customers, for example, they have created another sublane for develop in progress. For example, you have a piece of work that goes from in progress done, it goes to validate, and from validate it gets rejected because the development was not done, so there is rework, right? So I can go ahead and the in progress lane again I can divide into 2 and say this is regular work, right? I can give it a WIP and things like that. Then I can say this is rework. Okay. Now what happens is that once the work goes here, it gets done, it goes to validate. The validate finds that this particular work has to be reworked on. They would actually push the card back into rework here. Okay. So we get to track these separately. We get to measure them separately and things like that. So now we have a little more complex value stream here, which seems to probably be what we would want, right? So what I can do here is I can go down now. Now if you look at my fixed delivery date value stream, I would want to say, okay, I think I like the urgent value stream. I want to be able to replicate that in my fixed delivery date value stream, and then I will tweak that further. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. I'll make this changes. I'll say this changes, and I'll say from the urgent value stream, just copy that urgent value stream to my fixed delivery. Right now, if you go to the fixed delivery date, you have the same value stream that you define. So let me actually reduce my zooming here. So if you look at the value stream that you defined in urgent, you have the same thing you have copied into fixed delivery. now you are able to make changes, any incremental changes you would want to fix delivery. You can extend it, you can reduce one of these and things like that, and then you can take the same decision as to what you want to do with standard class and intangible class, right? You are also able to move these lanes up and down. Now once you say you can actually move this lane up and say, hey, I want to have the fixed delivery up and the urgent down, things like that. So you will be able to move these lanes up and down. So the same thing would actually be applicable whether you want to create it by team member, by priority, by the size of card. We just demonstrated the class of service, right? So this is how you would actually go ahead and create a value stream in the system. Then once you define this value stream, you would actually go ahead and then click the card types. I'm going to save what I did now. I'm going to create the card type. So these are the card types that I have defined for my organization. I can unclick any of these and say, you know what, in this particular board, I want only these 3 card types as work items that you would want. So you could unclick any of these and then only deploy those cards that you would want in this particular board. So that is one step. Then we have a quick couple of policies here. So make common entry mandatory on card movement. So this will force a person to enter the comment when he moves the card from one working lane to the other lane. The next one would be alert team members if the cards are moved without task closure. So the cards have a to-do list that you can actually create behind on the card. So if the team member moves it without closing the associated to-do list associated with that particular lane, the system would warn him saying that, you know, you have not closed the task and you are trying to move the card to the next lane, to the next the next column rather. Okay, so you do that, and now let's so this value stream is ready for us. Now you're looking at the lane. Now you can go ahead and add any card type to this value stream. So now we are out of the design mode. See, when you are in the modify process, you are in the design mode. We see all these icons. So once you're done with it, you have saved it. Now you're back to deploying it. So now you have deployed this particular board. Now you're ready to work with this board, right? Now you get to add cards to this board. Now how do you add cards to this board? There are 3 ways of adding cards to this board. You can add a new card directly to, so these are the type of cards I've deployed on this particular board. So I'd say, you know what, I want to create a user story card. I want to call it demo user story. Okay, I can give it a description, I can format it whichever way, I can include images here and things like that. Now I get to choose where I want to deploy this particular card, right? So I can actually go ahead and so as you see, I've created, now this is why we call it a smart lane. As you see, we have created this by class of service, right? So this card is standard class. So if I pick the lane to deploy it, it will only give me the standard class lane I can deploy it on, right? So suppose you start a card. Let me show you this. Let me change this to, for example, I want fixed delivery date card, right? So now I'm able to deploy it only to the fixed delivery date. I can deploy it in, see, in fixed delivery date again, as you see, you have two sublanes I can deploy it to, which is the finance unit and the manufacturing unit. So it's asking me where should I deploy it, either here or here, right? So let me actually take the manufacturing unit, and I'm gonna, I can even unassign it for now and deploy it, or I can have a person assigned to it. Let me do a submission here. So there. So now you have a card deployed in the fixed delivery date queue. So now if I move this card, I can move this card from one lane to the other. If I move this card between lanes, automatically the attribute of this card will be reset to the urgent type of delivery, the class of service, right? So when you move this card between the lanes, the attribute associated with the card automatically gets reset to that particular class of service. And when you are able to, when you create a card on a particular class of service, you're able to deploy it only to that particular lane on your board. So these are some things that we have done, and that's why we call the entire lane capability out here as smart lanes because it understands the attributes, it changes the attributes as you keep moving the card from one lane to the other. Now you've actually deployed this particular card on the lane. You can, when you add cards, you can also add, for example, let me take another card which is the defect card. I'm going to actually say new defect. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the backlog, right? So it sits off the board. So I'll submit it here. So it's created the backlog. Now when I go to add card, I can go ahead and search in the backlog, and I can add it to the board, right? And it says it's a standard class card, so I'm going to add it to the ready queue, and it would add it to my board here. Okay, so it's a standard class card, so it must have added it at the bottom here, right? So this is how you would actually create value streams, and this is how you would be able to make changes to this as and when you would want later. So once you've created this value stream, even if you have a card, you can, for example, tomorrow you say, you know, these type of value streams by class of service is not good for me. I want to go ahead and modify it to, for example, I go to smart lane settings, and I want to modify it to something else. I want to define smart lanes by custom labels. You're able to change that, and automatically the board will reconfigure to that particular type of smart lanes that you want to set. Okay, so let me actually go out of here. I want to show you a set of boards that we actually set up, just to give you an idea as to what different types of boards that you can actually set up using this product. So let me log in here. Okay, let me go to the projects here. So this is one of the boards we have actually set up. This is the basic flow. We have set it up by class of service, expedite, standard class. We have backlog, in progress, and deploy. We have different value streams for the standard class. There is a different value stream, and for a fixed delivery date, there is a different value stream. So this is one type of a value stream we have set up. Here is a simple scheduling board that we talked about earlier. Again, I mean, these are just ideas here, and we've seen customers using it as well. So this is like a scheduling board where you have a ready queue. This week we can actually schedule work out here, and then you can actually schedule work out for the next week as well, and things that are archived, right? So this would essentially be your scheduling board. You can have another board where the work can actually flow, and then you would be able to even divide this into in progress done, and you'll be able to work on that, right? So this is some sort of a scheduling board we want to show you. We have a little more complex board, which is a multiple workflow board, and here what the customer wanted was a single input queue across the. So he didn't want multiple lanes, but he wanted a single input queue, but multiple value streams or multiple workflows associated with different types of work. So what we did is that we modeled a single input queue. Here is where you have bugs, you have stories and issues, and each of them actually has a different value stream here. So the bugs goes to analyze, in progress, fix, which has got 2 sublanes, in progress and done. You validate and deploy. Stories go through estimate, elaborate, develop, validate, and deploy. And issues goes to acknowledge, analyze, resolve, and archive. Right now, I can go ahead if you want and build another lane. For example, I mean, I don't know, archive it or whatever it is. I can actually go ahead and build another lane that actually is a common lane across all these type of work types in the workflow. So what I want to essentially show you is that you can actually start with a single input to all this. You can have different workflows associated with different types of work you do, and again, it can come back into another common workflow step, if you will. So you start with a common, have different workflows with different types of steps, and then again come to a common queue. You can do that. So that is one. So here we've actually done. I mean, this is a board that again has got 2 different sub lanes, which we did during the time we built our board from scratch. But here, what we have done is that we have taken the ready queue, split it into two. We have taken the done queue, split it into two, and it can be reworked or two different business units, and so that here. And so this is one other form of the board. Here is where we have smart lanes by class of service. We've seen smart lanes by team members. So if I go to this particular board, if I look at the team members, I have 3 team members. One is a team member 1, the team member 2, and these are all generic logins I've actually provided. And I have a product owner. So if I go back to my Kanban board, you have 3 different lanes. So you have a team member lane, you have a value stream, you have a team member 2 lane, you have a value stream, and you have a you have an unassigned lane for a value stream, and you have a product owner. Again, you can reshuffle them whichever way you would want. So these lanes are automatically created using these smart lane settings, right? And one more last one which I want to show you before we open it up for question answers is smart lane demo. So here is a very complex board. This is one of our customers who wanted to do process. So they have a process enablement department, and what they do is that they have a huge process. They have multiple sub process. Each sub process has got tasks and things like that. So they wanted to actually, create a very complex model. And to be honest with you, I don't understand a little of it. So we actually work together with them to actually create this board. So here is where the major process is. You have a process definition, and you have sub process associated with it. And the sub process have in progress and done. You have a task associated with it, and then the process definition. So there are 2 different major subdivisions here. You have process definition, you have a process orchestration. Under process definition, you have sub processes, and under process orchestration, you have a set of other value streams associated with it. And then they wanted sub processes which hang off. So they want to take any of these sub processes here and then put it here, and then take the sub process through a set of steps. And finally, there were tasks associated with the sub processes which they wanted to take on a separate board. So again, a very complex board. Just to show you that you can take any sort of a value stream you'd want, and you would be able to easily model it on our board as far as you know what you want to see in terms of visualization of your process. And I think the last one would be so here is a smart lanes that we helped a customer create by project. So they didn't want 2 different boards separately. So they have 2 different projects, and they wanted to model it in a single board because the theme is common, and there are interdependencies between these boards. Again, in a regular session, I would have actually covered things like traceability, where I'm able to take a card out here and link it to a card on this particular lane, or link it to a card on something totally different, which is another Kanban board. So here the customer wanted it to have it on the same board. So we model it as 2 different projects. So there's a project A, there is a project B. Project A has got a value stream, project B has got a value stream, and then we have a common set of team members associated with these projects, and we actually had it deployed. So this gives you a very high level overview of what you can do with the smart lane capability in SwiftKanban. We do have extensive help out here, and we have YouTube videos as well to help you create these value streams. Plus, we have support people who can actually get on a WebEx with you and help you model your smart lanes the way you'd want. If you go to a website, there is a registration where you can create a trial account for yourself, which has got admin rights. You can create this entire thing I showed you and see whether the product works for your organization. So that completes my demo here, and I would open up for questions now. So if you want to ask any questions, you can ask for the mic. You can speak it, or you'll be able to type it in the chat window below, and we would take up the question and answer these questions. We'll keep the session open for a couple of minutes. If there are no questions, probably it's good you understood everything that you can do with these smart lanes. You could also get back to us, email us with questions if you have, and we would answer them as well. All right, looks like there are no questions. So first of all, let me again thank you very much for participating in this webinar. You could reach us either on phone or through email, which is listed on our website, swift-kanban.com, and you have all the information that was there in the webinar in our help. Plus, this webinar is recorded. If anyone wants to use this as a way in which you would want to leverage to create your own smart lanes, please do get back to us, and we'll be able to send you this recording as well. Thank you very much again for attending this webinar. Bye bye.